Now that the application development is done, let me try to deploy it on Azure as a static web application. So there is a application, it is called an extension, Visual Studio Code extension, it is called Azure Static Web Apps, and this is the extension. This is in a preview mode, and then it's what I'm gonna use. Possibly there are millions of other ways to deploy an application on Azure as an Azure App Service, but this is a relatively new feature and might work. I've already tested it once and it worked, and now I try to share my experience with that. Okay, first of all, terribly important that you have to build your application, but before building the application, let me suggest, and this is terribly important, that here in angular.json the output path by default is this getting started with Angular my source, so your project name is also included here. Instead of doing that, just simply delete it and then make the output path a simple distribution as dist. This is my experience very important when you want to work with the static web apps. This is the static web apps user interface. Let me just close these functions. So this is the user interface we have for this Azure Static Web Apps. I already don't have any of these, so this would be the distribution. Let's just make this committee that is build dist build output path changed to dist. Okay, and then so this is my repository. Let me just check out here that the angular.json build output path changed to dist. Okay, and then so the next step is to build the application in the terminal, that is npm build. By the npm run build. So this npm run build invokes the ng build, and then it by default builds a production build. So don't need to enter this dash prod as it used to be the tradition. It's deprecated, this option. Ng build is the regular building process, and this is gonna build a dist folder in my directory, in my working directory, and then dist is going to be deployed. Yep, make sure if you click, you shouldn't be see. If you can see any name here, your project name, then it won't work. Then it won't work. So this is the preparation, and then the next step, go to the Azure and the static web apps, and of course you should have a account on Azure, and just click and then enter the name for the new static web app. It's going to create a resource. Yep, that's totally fine. It's an Angular. Enter the location of your application. Yeah, this is the home of my application, and the dist is the distribution folder. This is from where it is going to deploy, and practically successfully create new static web app. It was real quick. What is happening behind the scene? Open in portal. Here you go. This is the application. This is going to be the URL. Not a fancy URL, but really doesn't matter. I don't know how to change or modify this, and this is a free service according to this description. And when you click here, thank you, oops, we have received the content, receiving any content from, then you can click here and to visit the GitHub repository. And also, when I'm coming back, it has a actions, and build and deploy job started a minute ago. And then setup job succeeded, build Azure Static Web Apps deploy successful, and now it is running. The build and deploy started a few seconds ago, so this should be waited until it's got, and I think output used to be a place to monitor, but this is not the case here. So when the project process is done, you can see here the result. If there is an error, it breaks, and this shows nicely what was the reasons. Actually, initially I gave a couple of tries, and eventually that was the only issue, this distribution folder. And when I recognized that that's the issue, I managed to perform this action, so hopefully it's going to work fine now too. Of course, we can refresh. Yeah, and this refresh, build and deploy succeeded a few seconds ago. And then what we can do, just right click here, and then it says browse site. Successfully built and deployed. Also browse website, it is also available here. Okay, let's just click browse website. Here you go. And this is the kind forest and the number Azure Static Apps.NET products. This is the application. Let me just open my terminal, my Google Chrome. Oh, interesting. Interesting, but it works from here. And this is the store. Okay, just refresh it. Static web apps, my store, and global location. When I open it, it opens nicely. When I copy and come over to here, of course, I was stupid. This okay, it works fine from here too. It was interesting. Yes, initially you shouldn't use these products there. That was tricky. I just copied a link and then open the more tools, developer tools, and fail to load resource server response with the status I don't know what products. Interesting, but I have here the products from my site. Let's just go to Mimic Mobile, check out shipping prices, home, phone, and buy. Go for checkout, enter address, purchase. Yeah, it seems to be working fine. So, friends, that was all. Actually, I managed to deploy it. I still don't know. One more thing. Let me just show you when I visit my GitHub repository and I check my repositories. Excellent. It worked totally fine here, and I also have workflows. And yes, this was the distribution. So whenever I hopefully change and update here some commit, some modification, let me just go to change maybe the maybe the yes, the product top bar component, something like which is visible, my store, my ng store, and then commit store title to ng store, and then I push it. Okay, when I'm coming here, I just here you go. Store title change to entry store push. Build Azure so this is building and deploying my application. Build and deploy started a few seconds ago. So actually it is working on store title change. This is what we call continuous development and continuous integration and continuous deployment. So what I am expecting, that it seems to me that we don't even need this deploy directory here on my local system. So what I think that I don't need it at all. Let me just delete it because it is anyway not. Here you go, build and deploy succeeded. So after this change, let's go then to my application and just load it again. Here you go, my ng store. So that's it. My friends, I think this conclude this sequence, and the reason I experimenting with this Microsoft solution because in commercial and enterprise circles, enterprise companies, I mean corporations, they prefer Microsoft Azure. And that's why it is very important that you have experience in Azure, how to deploy applications, app services in Azure. So I've never seen any company for which I worked where Google was used for enterprises. Google seemed to me company for the masses, for the hobbyists, but for professionals, for enterprises, Microsoft Azure is the way to go. So, thank you for your attention and take care.